Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our third installment of the Jewish Community Federation's Community Chronicles program. My name is Amy Nissenson, and I am proud to be the General Campaign Chair for this year's Jewish Community Federation of Richmond's annual campaign. I'd like to first thank the corporations of Fulton Bank, Davenport and Company, Allianz, and Dominion Energy for helping to sponsor tonight's event. Sorry for the barking. By sponsoring this event, they allow us to deploy more crucial funds into the community. When I agreed to chair the annual campaign and fundraising efforts, I certainly anticipated some challenges, but nothing like what has come our way. However, in spite of being one of the most difficult years, I have been moved by our community's generosity. We know the financial ramifications and dire for many community members and Jewish institutions, and we know the best way to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks is through a strong federation and a campaign. Thus far, I am thrilled to announce that we have raised over $1.4 million for the community. More exciting than that, of the 1.4 million, more than 420,000 have come from new donors and those who have also increased their giving from what they gave last year. What a fantastic start. We're so proud, but we still have a long way to go. If you haven't made a commitment to yet, consider doing so tonight. The gifts to this year's annual campaign are more critical than ever and will ensure that our community comes out of the wake of this pandemic stronger and more vibrant than ever. Making those gifts are easier than ever before. Right now, you can text your contribution to 804-331-8311. Once again, that's 804-331-8311, or you can visit jewishrichmond.org to make your impact tonight. We would also love to hear from you and talk about how meaningful your gift can be. You can email our Federation Director of Development, Jesse Feld, at jfeld@jewishrichmond.org to set up an annual campaign conversation. Thank you all for making Richmond's Jewish community so beautiful. Tonight's program represents another inspiring story of resilience, and it is my pleasure to welcome Federation's Treasurer and my good friend, Howard Goldfein, to introduce our speaker. Thanks, Howard.
Thank you, Amy, and thanks for everyone for joining tonight's program. Tonight, I will have the distinct privilege of introducing Lisa Friedman Clark. Before I read her introduction, though, I wanted to share a personal anecdote, a short one, though. Lisa and I have never met, but we are connected through her late husband, Andy. And as we were chatting privately here right before the conference call, we are connected through other people, as you know, we played Jewish geography together. Andy and I went to the same elementary, junior, and high school together, and we spent countless hours on the streets of Valley Stream, usually doing something that involved a bat, a ball, a stick, a glove, and without any parental supervision. It was really an idyllic wonder years-ish existence. I most fondly remember spending time with Andy playing street hockey on Vista Road in front of Mark Plumer's house and in between the wings of Howell Road School. And I can go on and on with lots of stories, but we're here tonight to hear Lisa's story. And as you'll hear in tonight's program, Lisa likes to refer to herself as the luckiest unlucky person she knows. Lisa is a proud Loge and downline of Judah and has been an active leader of Federation in and around the tri-state area. She has worked on various endeavors, including the Women's and New Leadership campaigns, and also was the Long Island Chair for Planned Giving Endowment for several years. Lisa now resides in Jericho, New York, and Boca Raton, Florida, with her husband, Bruce Clark. Her 26-year-old twins, Michael and Daniel, reside and work in Manhattan. At 6'11" and 6'9", they are believed to be the tallest Jewish twins in the world. Since necessity is the mother of invention, Lisa recently started a family business with her sons, tallorder.com, which manufactures and sells fashion socks for men. And there's another connection that I have with Lisa's family, and that I went to the Darden School, and I believe it was Dan went there also. Tonight, if you order socks from tallorder.com, I repeat, tallorder.com, and use the code JFR Richmond, a portion of the proceeds will be donated right back to the Federation here in Richmond. So although we are on Zoom, I know the entire Richmond community joins me in giving a warm welcome to Lisa, and thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Unmute. Can you hear me, everybody? I hope I can be heard.
We hear you.
Oh, good, good, good. Great. Thanks so much. Thank you, Howard, for that wonderful introduction. I'm very anxious for you to meet the boys here on Zoom. My kids, Mike and Dan, are going to be joining us in a few minutes. So thank you. It certainly is a small world, and those stories, I'm anxious for you guys to meet personally so that you guys can share. We always love to talk about Andy and learn as much as we can about, what it was like when he was growing up. So that's kind of neat. As Howard said, my name is Lisa Friedman Clark, and I am a proud endowed Lion of Judah, originally from New York. I just recently moved to Boca full time. So I have just now given my gift down here in Boca Raton. And as I said, my twin sons, Mike and Dan, will be joining us in a few minutes. Before I get started, I wanted to thank Jesse, who has been really terrific in getting us acclimated and all the technology, and his entire team for inviting us today. And hopefully this will be, I know this is the third of your webinar events, and hopefully it'll be the best. I'd also like to thank Howard and Ellen Renee Adams, Amy Nissenson, who we just heard from, and Daniel Staffenberg for welcoming us with virtual open arms. We're thrilled to be here tonight. When I originally spoke with Jesse about participating in your event, I immediately felt that it was beshert that we were the chosen speakers. Obviously, I have the connection with Howard. It just exemplifies how we are all so interconnected. What are the chances that your treasure went to elementary school with my husband? It's weirdly close. And also my family, as Howard said, has some ties to Richmond. My son, Dan, graduated last year, actually, from the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. So as you can imagine, we've spent a lot of time in and around the Richmond, Charlottesville area. But in addition, my current husband, who is a sports producer for CBS Sports, has worked on many VCU versus Richmond games, or Richmond versus VCU. We've been to both arenas. And every time I get down to Richmond, there was always one common theme. We always had dinner at Tarrant's Cafe. Since COVID, I don't know if it's still there, but if it is, I would suggest you all run, don't walk. It's a really great restaurant, great food, and it's in like an old apothecary drugstore, so it's kind of neat. Anyway, sorry for the digression. My sons and I are about to share our story. I know you've heard some of it already, but we're going to talk a little bit about how Federation was there for us, and how now my family is here for others facing traumatic loss. We always say that no man is an island, and we are all in it together. And today more than ever, this is true worldwide. The COVID crisis has only heightened the need for everyone to help one another if we can. So here's our story. Like many of you, I grew up in a privileged home surrounded by love, support, comfort, and fabulous role models. Those are my folks, and that's my sister. My parents, who were far from rich in the financial sense, made my sister and I their top priorities. And although sometimes they had to forego things that they wanted to do, they made sure we went to the best camps, the best teen tours, best colleges, and most importantly, they made sure we had a foundation where we knew how lucky we were to have our health and our family and our friends. They would always stress the importance of tzedakah, whether it be through donations of money or time. and encourage us to always give back in our community. So that's what I've always tried to do. I've always felt fortunate to be in a position to support an organization like Federation. As Howard said, I've been part of new leadership and the women's campaigns on Long Island. And as I said, I just joined down here in Florida, and I'm going to be heading up some of the business and professional women's groups down here. I chaired the Women's Plan Giving and Endowment campaign for several years on Long Island. I've been a Lion. I don't know if you can see my pin, but there it is. I've been a Lion since I was in my 40s. That was a long time ago. And I also endowed my gift through a life insurance policy 15 years ago to make sure that my legacy lives on long after I'm gone. It was a very inexpensive way at the time to perpetuate my gift forever. And I would encourage anybody out there that would like to consider doing something like that to speak to, I'm assuming it's Howard or Jesse, or I'm sure they'd get you to the right parties. But again, I did it when I was in my 40s. And so getting a term life insurance policy for the amount of a Lion's gift was very, very inexpensive. So I just throw that in as a side commercial. Over the years, like many of you, I've gone on many agency visits. I've met countless recipients, and I've participated in many fundraisers, including 2 performances of the Vagina Monologues for Federation in New York City and on Long Island. And it truly is amazing the things that you will do for Federation. That's me a few pounds ago doing the Vagina Monologues. But seriously, I know what it feels like to be a volunteer and a donor. That said, I also know too well what it feels like to be a recipient. While I've hopefully helped many people I've never met, I can truly say I know how they feel because I have walked in their shoes. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and as I do, keep in mind the very, very fine line that we all walk between being a donor to Federation and a recipient of their generosity. So there I am in the middle, the natural redhead. I graduated Cornell in 1984 as an electrical engineer, and I started a great career with IBM. I met a terrific guy, that's Andy Friedman, and I was literally on top of the world. I thought nothing could ever stop me, but I was wrong. At 23, so that's about a year after I graduated from college, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. That's me right when I started chemotherapy. There are no other photographs of me going through chemotherapy because back then we didn't have the telephone cameras, and that was one shot I didn't like and didn't really want anybody to see what I was looking like. So this is, you get the one and only. But at the time, Andy, my future husband, was there by my side. He was my rock. And although he was really just my boyfriend at the time, he supported me through one of the most difficult and darkest times of my life. The name of my disease was called dysgerminoma, and it's a very rare germ cell ovarian cancer. And at the time in 1985, the most conservative protocol was to do a radical hysterectomy and radiation to eradicate the cancer. And for a girl of 23, that option seemed rather foreboding. So enter Dr. Peter Dottino, who is from Mount Sinai Hospital, and he is still there. And I actually text with him all the time. Very good friend of mine for obvious reasons. He had just begun doing research on different forms of chemotherapy as a way to preserve fertility in young female cancer patients. So I endured many months of chemo. As you can see, I lost my hair. But it's actually 33 years later, I'm happy to report that I am cancer-free. And in fact, Dr. Dottino believes that I have been off chemotherapy longer than any other patient in his practice. It's pretty cool. And I was just there 2 weeks ago, and my folder, they still have it, is the largest folder they have in the waiting room, which I think is pretty neat. So what does that have to do with Federation, you might ask? Well, as you all know, there are countless agencies worldwide that get funding from Federation, but you might be surprised how many of them are places where you and I, our friends around the country, get support and services every day. Yes, Mount Sinai in New York City was one such agency, and just to digress again, My current husband, Bruce, just had cancer surgery for prostate cancer. And once again, we found ourselves in Mount Sinai, and it really warms my heart when I see the plaques and whatnot of the donations that have been made by Federation. So unbeknownst to me, at the age of 23, Mount Sinai was a recipient agency, and therefore I too was a recipient. And at the time, I didn't even know what Federation was. So it was the breadth and the width of what Federation does for so many, affected me at such a young age. So now let me talk a little bit more about Andy, who stood by my side during this very devastating time in my life. Whenever I was afraid or concerned about my health, Andy would be the one I turned to, and he would always put me at ease. And I really was one lucky lady. So fast forward, there we are. Shortly after my recovery, we were married in 1987. We did the newly married thing, and we lived in the city for a short time. And then we had what I like to refer to is my miracle children, Mike and Dan, who we had naturally. They're my twins. My sister has twins too. They run in the family. Anyway, life was great. I was healthy. Our children were wonderful. We both had successful careers. We bought a house. We moved to the suburbs, and we began our storybook life. Unfortunately, it was short-lived. 8 years later, on 9/11/2001, Andy went to work at One World Trade Center and never came home. He worked on the 92nd floor, and I believe he was alive until the second tower fell at 10:29 that morning. He called me after the second plane had hit the South Tower and told me he was in a room with plenty of air and they were all together. What I later found out was that they were huddled near some window that they had kicked out, and there was smoke and fire everywhere. The plane had hit one floor above Andy between 93 and 98. In the North Tower. And although he was below the line of impact, the damage to the stairwells was so great and devastating that he and the 68 of his colleagues could not get down. And I probably ought to just jump back just for a second so that you understand. Andy had worked in Midtown his entire life. He had just gotten this opportunity. He had been there for 2 weeks. He hadn't even unpacked his boxes yet. So, and I do remember that when he got the job offer, as excited as we were because it was life-changing for us, the one thing I remember saying is, are you sure you want to work in the World Trade Center? Because, I just had remembered 1993. But anyway, I digressed again. It turns out that his floor was the line of demarcation between life and death. All those on 91 lived, and all those on 92 died. And those 69 lost souls were alive until the very end. About an hour and 40 minutes of hell, I would imagine. I was 39 years old. This is us at the Jet game. It was against Kansas City. This was probably in November. And I just look at it and I cry. I was 39 years old with 11-year-old boys. They were in their second week of 6th grade in a new middle school. So imagine for 1 minute putting the TV on this morning and seeing what I saw on the news that day. 1 minute you're rushing to get your kids or grandkids off to school, you're saying goodbye to your spouse, you're getting ready for work, and in a split second, your husband's been murdered. Life as you knew it would cease to exist. So now I was alone without my rock, facing the future, wondering where I was going to get the strength to raise 2 children on my own, and who would I turn to in my moments of panic. My rock was no longer there. Needless to say, my friends and family, who were amazing, stepped in to help me get through the day-to-day routines. And to everyone on the outside, my family seemed to be functioning quite well. On the inside, however, I was devastated and put on a good act for the sake of my kids. I wasn't okay. I knew I needed help, but I wasn't sure where to go. And that's when one of my friends suggested I call Federation, and they directed us to the help that we needed. It wasn't more than 3 weeks after 9/11, And Federation Family Service agencies had already mobilized their network of social workers and psychologists. They had numerous support groups and private counseling experts available to me and many families like mine. There was no need for training. There was no delay, as their resources were in place, already trained because of their involvement in Israel and terrorist attacks overseas. They were uniquely able to understand the needs of families affected by terrorist attacks like what had just happened in New York, DC, and Pennsylvania. Sorry, I just have to having a moment. Anyway, it's so weird on Zoom, I have to be honest. They were also there with financial aid for anyone who needed it. Now, at the time, I didn't tell you this part, but I had moved from working from IBM to working as an executive at what now is Bank of America. So there was financial aid for anyone that needed it. I was lucky, I was financially savvy. I knew where my money was, I knew how to access everything, and I knew what I needed to pay my bills and to keep my household running. Not all widows or widowers were so lucky. Many didn't have the financial resources or the mental ability after such a tragedy to deal with the ongoing responsibilities of life. Your mortgage payments and utility bills were still due after 9/11, and Federation agencies generously offered cash to cover bills as well as volunteers to open the mail and physically cut checks. So many 9/11 families were so deep in the weeds, they didn't get out of bed, and this help was truly, invaluable. Had it not been for the many people I met through Federation, I'm not sure I'd be where I'd be today, or if I'd be here. I'm so grateful to the Federation and to the network of services our entire community can depend on, each one of us here today, our loved ones and the people we'll never know, but who will be forever thankful for our support. I'm so proud to be a supporter of Federation. I am so inspired by the company I keep. Now I'd like to introduce Mike. He's one of my sons who will tell you from his perspective how he learned the importance of tzedakah by watching what we all do as adults. Then Dan will tell you a little bit about how our family has a personal tall order to pay it forward for all the help we received when our lives were turned upside down. Mike, you're up. I'm gonna mute me, I guess. Right?
Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure if everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody. As my mom said, my name is Mike. I am one of the twins along with my brother Dan. So to talk to you a little bit about the importance of giving back. At an early age, Dan and I learned about the importance of giving back and paying it forward. We saw the involvement our parents had in the community, at our temple, with Federation, and in our lives, especially as volunteer coaches and PTA members. As a way of staying true to the values of charitable work and dedication, we started implementing them in family-based projects we established at home. I think we were about 9 years old and not so tall, and decided to put aside $2 a week of our allowance towards a charity that was meaningful to us. Turn 2, which helps underserved kids in the Bronx. At the end of the year, we sent money to them, which is still run by our favorite longtime Yankee, Derek Jeter. My brother wrote a heartfelt note to his dad, Doc, about what we were doing and why we wanted to support his charity. A few weeks later, we got a note from Doc thanking us for our wonderful donation and thoughtfulness to put our others before ourselves. And that was one thing our dad really, really strived for, is putting others before ourselves. And we really wanted to hone in on that really valuable trait. After 9/11, the entire community, whether it was Federation, friends, family, knew we needed support and comfort to deal with the horrific loss our family suffered. They all played a part in helping us overcome adversity and honored our dad by raising money to build a basketball court in our local community and street corner named in his memory. So the court is named Andrew Friedman Way, or the sign in our local community. And there's a court a basketball court at the local park after And it was just a really great donation and great work by the people in the community that really cared for our family, and especially our dad. One person that went above and beyond was Derek. He reached out personally with a wonderful note, sending his sincere condolences and giving us words of encouragement. He invited us to attend events with him personally and showed his appreciation for what we had done for Turn 2. He hadn't forgotten our support of him and was going to ensure he supported us. And there the lesson, he was paying it forward. Now I'd like to introduce Dan to tell you about how these examples are serving us today.
All right, can you see me? Can you hear me? I think I unmuted myself there. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan. First of all, Howard, we're going to have a discussion about Darden afterwards. I didn't know that you were a Darden alum just like me. See, I graduated Darden last year, but we'll talk later about that. And as you can see from that photo, Derek Jeter towered above us when we were kids. And well, today we kind of tower over him. So, yeah, it's just kind of funny how life comes full circle like that. But thank you again, Mike, for those words. And thank you all for being here, supporting Federation so generously. You know, Mike had mentioned the foundation that our parents and so many others had set for all of us, all about giving back and paying it forward, which is exactly what you all are doing today by being here. You know, we remember in the days immediately following 9/11, our mom took us to New York City and we were searching for any information about our dad. And during that search, we handed out supplies, which included clean and dry socks to the brave first responders. From this experience, socks have always represented hope for our family. We didn't know it at the time, but that small act of kindness was going to serve as the foundation for the business that we would start 16 years later. As Mike and I grew older, and as we got taller and as our feet got bigger, we got jealous of our friends who were able to personalize their wardrobes with fun and funky socks that we just couldn't find at the big and tall stores that we frequented. All we could buy were plain blues, plain browns, plain grays, maybe a stripe or an argyle every now and then. But you combine this with the feeling that we were both frustrated at our lack of ability to make a direct impact in our work in corporate America, and you can start to see how the seeds of a business were sown. So given all that, a little over 3 years ago, we launched our business, Tall Order. We make comfortable, stylish, and high-quality socks for men of all sizes, not just tall. We started with tall, but we go in all sizes now. And we donate a portion of the profits back to impactful organizations. Our logo is formed not only by the letters T and O, the T rising above the O to show that we can rise above tragedy, but within the logo, there's also a subtle nod to the World Trade Center. And the logo is in sky blue, which represents the clear blue sky that was present on that fateful Tuesday. Our logo appears on the ankle of all of our socks, which serve not only as a conversation starter, but also a subtle reminder for men to fulfill their own personal tall order in everyday life to pay it forward as we do. You know, we've embraced the tall order of giving back and paying it forward through a number of philanthropic initiatives. We donate 10% of all of our profits to Tuesday's Children, which was a nonprofit formed in the aftermath of 9/11 to really help the children heal and come together. And now they assist other communities suffering in the wake of terrorism and traumatic loss in the same manner that they did for us. We also collaborated with the Feel Good Foundation on a limited edition sock design where 100% of the sales of that product will be donated directly back to their efforts, which assists 9/11 first responders who are now suffering financial hardships that have resulted from their heroic and selfless acts. And more recently, the Feel Good Foundation has increased their mission to help all frontline first responders and all heroes that are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We also sell our socks, normally when we're not in lockdown, we sell them at charity-focused markets all over the US, where instead of paying a rental fee, we donate a portion of the sales back to those during those events back to the organizer's charity of choice. Today's Zoom event is an example of what we're doing in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic to keep Tall Order going, keep our support of nonprofits going, and also help grow our direct-to-consumer business and be able to talk and spread our message of resilience and giving back to all of you great people. Now, finally, to make all of this possible and to spur our growth, we've hooked on with a new manufacturer, United Legwear, which is also one of the largest providers of socks to the needy. They have donated over 5 million pairs of socks to date, and we're happy to make up even just a small part of that donation. While our family isn't the same as it was prior to 9/11, we have come out the other end stronger and more focused and more driven than ever before. Through our efforts with our business, as well as our charitable focus in everything that we do, we believe we're honoring our dad's legacy by continuing to exemplify his values. So I want to thank Jesse and the team here in Richmond who will be buying socks from Tall Order that will be donated in your community. We'd also like to encourage all of you to go to our website, tallorder.com, and use the code JFRichmond. Using that code will allow us to track the orders from this event, and we'll be donating 20% of the proceeds back to Federation. Hanukkah's coming up. We have amazing socks for the men, for all the men in your life from all sizes. We go from shoe sizes 9 to 20. So no matter who you know, there'll be someone who can fit in one of our great, really comfortable, really fashionable, and really fun pairs of socks. We have a lot of really cool new stuff coming soon. We have some more athletic stuff coming. So just stay tuned for that. But for now, I'll pass it back to our mom for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Mike. And I just want to reiterate, it's JF Richmond, Jewish Federation Richmond is the code. Okay, so just as an epilogue to my story, our story, I kind of hinted to it as we were going along. I do consider myself the luckiest unlucky person I know. I seem to, at least up until this point, I'm able to dance between the raindrops instead of letting them fall on my head. As time passed after Andy's death, and after I received so much help from Federation, I did return to work. I met a wonderful man, Bruce Clark, and as I said, he is a sports producer right now with CBS Sports. And I like to believe it was divine intervention. He immediately bonded with my basketball-obsessed twins. At the time, he was working for ABC Sports. He was the producer, if you're into college football, for the Brad Nessler, Bob Greasy, and Lynn Swann games. So he did most of the Big Ten. It was kind of neat. And the boys fell in love with him. We were married in 2005. It was our 15th anniversary in July. And as you've heard, my boys both graduated from college. Dan went to Syracuse. Mike went to Syracuse, Dan went to Michigan and to UVA, and they both work and live in Manhattan. So as the parent of a 30-year-old, I'm acutely aware of the likelihood that my children may settle down somewhere other than the community where they were raised, or Boca. So in addition to all the other reasons why I've spoken about the importance of supporting Federation, I didn't mention perhaps the most important reason. Wherever our children and grandchildren settle down, I know they will be greeted by a vibrant, cohesive Jewish community like the ones here in Richmond. You may be a small-sized community, but you punch beyond your weight class. If ever your friends or family find themselves moving or living outside of Richmond, don't you want them to have access to the same types of programs and services and community love that you can all take advantage of in your own community now? What a gift our dollars make today, and if endowed in perpetuity to future generations of Jews here nationally and around the world. And I can attest to this because I just moved to Boca. I made one phone call to Jewish Federation, and I am already hooked up with the Business and Professional organization, and I'm hooked up with their first event is tonight at 8 o'clock. And I'm already meeting with the Lions down here, and I have an entire support structure, and I literally got here 2 weeks ago. So it just shows you why it's so important to be active in Federation. To wrap up, I know how precious every single day is, and I don't want to waste 1 minute. And that's why I'm truly delighted that we were asked to speak here today. Nothing makes me happier, and I know nothing would make Andy happier, than to meet people who know how important it is to be part of something bigger than ourselves. I hope you all realize that the work you do reaches so many people, some who can't help themselves and others, like me, who for whatever reason find themselves in a bad situation. Today with the COVID pandemic, we can all relate to the fine line that we do walk between being donors and recipients of charity. So many that we know directly or indirectly have been affected by the current situation and may need the help of Federation. And I am so proud to know that we are here for them. Thank you all for everything you do each and every day. Thanks.
Lisa, thank you so much for your,
You're welcome.
you, Dan, Mike, all of your inspiring words. We really appreciate you being here virtually with us in Richmond. And before we let you go, there are a couple of videos or a couple of questions that we have for a question and answer portion. If you will do us the favor, we'll start with what I hope is the easy one, a couple short ones and then a more difficult one. One is simply Giants or Jets?
Well, I grew up a Jet fan because my dad, what was it? Shea Stadium was right near where I grew up. But I was converted when I met Andy, and my kids are diehard Giant fans. Season ticket holders, as a matter of fact.
Good. That's tough this year. Good for you guys.
It's been tough every year recently. And to be a Jet fan, too, for that matter.
Great. And then the next question is, how long, they're asking about the coupon code. So for tallorder.com, JF Richmond, the question is, how long will the coupon code be live?
We'll keep it live for a while, but you know, the sooner the better. But you know, it'll stay alive probably. I would say probably 2 weeks.
Okay. And then finally, before we let you go, one last question. What advice would you have for someone who is going through a hard time right now? I think we all kind of are going through a hard time, but from the lessons that you've learned and what you've talked about, what's something that you would tell somebody who's going through a tough time?
Yeah, you know, maybe I didn't say it directly, but to the extent that you can become outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused, it is tremendously healing. So instead of being the victim, become the participant. Try to give back to other organizations. Try to get involved in figuring out, you know, if it's an illness, ways of helping people with the illness. It could be anything. You know, the first time I really learned this lesson is when my company got bought and people lost their jobs. And I was trying to keep my people motivated when they were in the midst of, you know, sitting around waiting to find out if they were going to be cut. And I kept saying, you know, we can sit here and be, you know, victims, or we can try to be a participant. Let's figure out ways to be active and involved in figuring out the solution for what they need. So, I mean, that's kind of what I did with the kids. We took them to the city, they gave out the socks. We started to raise money for the basketball court. We started to raise money. Their friends went door to door, you know, asking people for donations. It's just, I mean, it's kind of, it actually makes a lot of sense. Like you always find out, like even like Steven Siller, Tunnel to Tower organization. I mean, he started that as during his grief because his brother had been killed running through the tunnel up to the World Trade Center, and he needed to find a way to take all that negative energy and focus it in a positive way. And so I would say for anybody that's dealing with any kind of a hardship, to the extent that you can take some of your energy and push it outward to helping other people, it makes you feel better. And then it also gives whatever the loss is a purpose.
Thank you very much for your insight, for your kind words, for answering the questions, for donating back to the Federation. We really appreciate it. And we're so glad that you're able to virtually join us tonight. And, you know, they say next year in Jerusalem, maybe next year in Richmond.
From your
you
mouth
guys to come down for another VCU in Richmond game.
That would be great.
It'd be great to have you down here again. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Howard and Amy, for bringing us together. And before we conclude, just have a couple brief remarks. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse Feld. I've been here at the Federation in Richmond for 5 years, and I'm honored to be the Director of Development and Engagement here at the Federation. The story we heard tonight from Lisa, Mike, and Dan was one of resiliency and courage. I believe that that same resiliency and courage is what we need right now in our community. Our Federation mission to build, support, and sustain the Jewish community is so important given the obstacles that our community is facing right now. A gift to the annual campaign takes that mission of building, supporting, and sustaining Jewish life. It takes that mission and makes it into a reality. I believe it takes the resiliency and courage we heard about tonight to step up and support what you care about. It is a tall order to give in times that are tough, but the time to give is now. Right now, any new or increased gift to the campaign is being matched at 50%. That means your $100 increase is actually worth $150. The time is now to ensure that our community retains its vibrancy and continues to thrive today, tomorrow, and in the future. Visit jewishrichmond.org to make a gift. You can call or email me, jfeld@jewishrichmond.org, to set a time to talk. Thank you all for your support, for your continued support of the Federation and our Jewish community. And one last time, thank you to Amy, Howard, Lisa, Mike, and Dan. It takes a village. We appreciate all of your help. Stay tuned for more Federation events coming down the pike. Good night.